Thanks for joining us on Shannons Club TV, where we take a unique Australian perspective on road and race car histories.
In each episode, we examine our feature car's performance on the road and in competition and take an up-close look at an owner's well-preserved example. We'll also get some handy tips from the Shannons auctions team.
So let's kick things off with the highly successful Holdens that made safety a strong selling point, the VR and VS Commodores.
In the early 1990s, safety was emerging as a key motoring priority for Australian consumers, and the 1993 VR was the first Commodore model to offer a driver's airbag. Cleverly, Holden's marketing executives conceived a new variant, the Acclaim, which packaged three standout safety features: airbag, independent rear suspension and anti-lock brakes with automatic transmission. Aimed at both fleet and private customers, within weeks, the Acclaim was accounting for 15% of VR sales. There was no other car in the price range which offered the same number of overt safety features, including seatbelt clamping on all Commodore variants. Holden safety engineer Laurie Spark, working in consultation with academics at Monash University on crash survivability, did a superb job of making the Commodore safer and in highlighting safety as a major issue. Mark, no doubt Holden was keen to blood the VR in competition.
Oh, for sure, but given that it came out in mid-1993, V8 supercar teams would have to wait until 1995 before the VR was ready to race. It's interesting, in 1995 also, Ed Ordinsky, in a V6 powered VR Commodore, won the Mobile One Round Australia trial, which, given that Brocky won the Repco trial in 1979, that gave Commodore a perfect score in Round Australia. So another feather in their cap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in many other respects, the VR dated right back to 1988 and the VN. The somewhat coarse pushrod 3.8 litre V6 was given only a minor upgrade. But although journalists complained about the engine's roughness, few customers expressed concern. A better engine choice was the 5 litre V8, now also available in a higher powered 185 kilowatt version. A Calais V8 with optional Howe leather was a far cry indeed from an entry-level Commodore Executive V6 with live rear axle and cut price trim. A significant cosmetic makeover included a new grille which paid homage to BMW's famous twin kidneys design and rounded rear wheel arches to offend fewer aesthetic sensibilities. The 1994 VR Statesman was immediately successful with the necessary visual differentiation from the standard wheelbase cars, in contrast to its overly Commodore-esque VQ predecessor. The VR was such a strong seller, no factory bonuses were offered until run out. Then, in 1995 came the VS with its much improved Ecotec V6 engine. HSV2 broadened its range, and a star of the Sydney show was the Melbourne Taxicab Yellow GTSR. In the second half of 1996, a supercharged version of the Ecotec V6 became optional in the Calais. Mark, did the VR raise the bar in V8 supercar racing?
Oh, it certainly did. The VR and the VS were both multiple Bathurst winners and touring car champions, but the transition from the previous VP was far from easy. The VR Commodore and its identical VS successor rank among Holden's most successful V8 supercars. However, during the early stages of development, the VR also triggered a year-long political war which threatened to rip touring car racing apart. At the core of the controversy was Holden's radical plans for its second V8 supercar Challenger, due to replace the existing VP model in 1995. Major changes to chassis and suspension were proposed, but governing body CAMS, arch-rival Ford and the entrance group Tiga all opposed Holden's plans due to their greatly increased complexity and costs. After CAM's rejection of numerous prototypes throughout the year, Holden finally relented, with the only changes being a cosmetic update from VP to VR with a new wind tunnel tested front spoiler and rear wing to match. John, you know, car manufacturers have a history of this blind self-interest when it comes to motorsport. They don't care about the category, they don't care about anything else, they just want to get in there and win.
That's right, that's right. And if they can't win, they won't be in it.
Yeah.
Often, yeah.
That was a really pivotal moment in the sport, because if they had been allowed to go down that path, V8 supercar racing could have gone the way the British Touring Car Championship did in that time, where every time a manufacturer came out with a new car, the next year's race car would be completely different from the last one. So that provides no supply chain for privateers and people to join.
Makes it very expensive.
And all of a sudden the thing implodes.
Yes.
So it was a pivotal moment in the category, for sure. In 1995, the new VR initially found the going tough against Ford's latest EF Falcon, with the Touring Car Championship a two-car war between Ford Top Guns Glenn Seaton and eventual winner John Bowe. However, at Bathurst, the top Ford teams came unstuck, handing victory to Larry Perkins and Russell Ingall, who fought back from an early tyre failure in their Castrol VR to become the first team to win the great race from last place. The VR went on a winning rampage the following year when the stars aligned for young gun Craig Lowndes and the Holden racing team. Lowndes became Australia's youngest touring car champion before joining forces with Kiwi Greg Murphy to win the Sandown and Bathurst Enduros in convincing style. In 1997, Perkins and Ingall scored their second Bathurst victory in 3 years, before Lowndes returned to HRT after a season in Europe to claim his second touring car title in a VS Commodore in 1998. The VS also played a pivotal role in securing Lowndes' third championship the following year before its well-earned retirement. The VR VS Commodore may have caused some early pain for Holden, but after so much success over 5 seasons, it had certainly been worth it. Don't forget, you can find your favourite car club or event on the Shannons Club website.
My name is Roy. The make and model of this car is a 1996 VS GDSR. I've had the car for approximately 4 years. Other than what you see, nothing's been done to the car. Well, the main key spec to this car, it's the optimised. It's only 15 out of 75 in Australia were optimised. This particular car is an optimised, number 23. The optimised means that they went in for an upgrade, approximately $10,000. I think they had some engine work, including cam, which was an optional extra. The favourite feature on this car would have to be the carbon rear wing and the colour, being the unique colour that it is, and I think probably the interior as well. That's certainly a lot different to any other car. It actually drives beautiful. It still feels like a new car. I think I've done a couple of 100 Ks in it over the 4-year period. There are no rattles. Pleasant car to drive and an easy car to drive. I've been a Shannons customer for 10 years. I have approximately 6 cars listed in Shannons. I've had a great experience with Shannons. I've always owned Holdens. You know, I've grown up, even with our company cars, they're all been HSVs. I've always had passion towards HSV. In the HSV series, this is the only car, in my opinion, that I thought held the most value because of the low numbers of 75. It was always going to be an immediate classic and a car that's going to go up in value.
Well, Shannons National Auctions Manager Chris Borobon's here to bring us up to speed on the VR and VS Commodores. Welcome, mate.
Hi Mark, how are you? John?
G'day, Chris. That was when safety was just becoming a big issue for the Australian motorist, and Holden very cleverly packaged the driver's airbag, independent rear suspension and anti-lock braking in a model they called the Acclaim, which quickly got quite a chunk of sales.
Yeah, and also I think fair enough, the VR was also a new shape, a new Holden shape.
I think it was one of the best. I think it was one of the best looking.
It was, yeah. So I think it had quite an appeal to the marketplace when it came out. And I mean, they sold hundreds of thousands of these cars, and they were predominantly used as family vehicles, as I guess, as fleet cars, and executives had them. So We saw them all over.
I wouldn't say it was a whole new shape, but it was quite a clever update of the existing shape to make it look pretty much just by rounding those.
Well, when you look at the VN, you look at the VN, and then you look at the VR.
Right,
It was quite dramatic, the difference.
And the VS had the new Ecotec engine with more horsepower and so on.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
But before we get on to the VS, what about some of the high performance VRs? I mean, I actually owned a Statesman 185i. I don't know when you last saw one of those.
Yeah, it's probably been a while actually. Yep. So I mean, look, I think that's probably what we're seeing in the marketplace. Some of the the higher output models are what the collectors are probably looking for today. And if we go into the VS range, again, the HSV versions are probably highly sought after.
And let's not forget that Holden was getting pretty serious with the SS, its own SS model with the V8. That's a pretty desirable car now, I would have thought, if you've got a nice factory one.
With the IRS, much better too. Yeah.
So I think that's probably up there in the pecking order of cars. And you'd have to say the star of the show today in that range is the GTSR in that famous yellow colour.
The famous yellow.
Well, that was also the time we saw the Stroker engine by Harrop went up to 5.7 litre, and that was pretty sought after at the time. I remember when the GTSR came out, that was the big talk, was the Stroker motor. So
it was. I mean,
would that be something sought after now?
Definitely, I think that's the one that collectors would be looking for. I mean, the car was quite loud, to be brutally honest.
That big wing on the back.
Big wing on the back. I guess in your face yellow colour, yes. The black wheels. It was really out there, and I think today we're seeing that from a collectability point of view. And a good car, good history, lower Ks is actually fetching very good, strong money.
They made a big fuss at the time about the Hydrotrack differential, but I think that's just disappeared, hasn't it? Pretty much.
I think that sort of disappeared as we moved on with different models, yes. Yep.
Right, so sprinkled through this range, we have independent rear suspension, we have the supercharged V6 engine, which we haven't discussed. That's probably something sought after by collectors. So what's the pecking order for VR VS? Do you start at the luxury models or you start at the performance models?
Definitely the performance models. So the GTSR would be leading the pack.
HSV, and then like an SS Commodore?
Correct,
nice
down with the SSs, and then we'd be looking at the supercharged version, and then followed by the naturally aspirated V6.
HSV really had quite a wide range, didn't they? Chris, I suppose the mainstream car was the Club Sport, and we had the Maloo, and we had the Senator, and so on.
Yes, that's right, yeah, correct.
They're all highly sought after these days?
Look, definitely, obviously more sought after than the base models. So I think, for the HSV enthusiasts, absolutely, that's the one to look for. Otherwise, I think probably looking at anything with a V8 in that VR VS range is
in the mainstream Holden.
That's right.
Range,
in the mainstream Holden range is obviously going to be more sought after than the 6.
Chase a V8. Good advice. Thanks, Chris. And you can keep up to date with all the latest Shannons auctions news on the Shannons Club website. For your own race image of the VR and VS Commodores, visit AutoPic's comprehensive motorsport photo archive. Looking back on these two Commodores, John, it was a real differentiation, wasn't there, between the Commodores and the luxury versions, wasn't there?
Yes, Holden had made a big mistake with the VQ Statesman. It looked just like an elongated and uglier VN. But the lesson about differentiation between the standard car and the long wheelbase versions was learnt and forgotten and relearnt with successive marketing generations and designers by both Ford and Holden. They both had some clangers. But the VR Statesman Caprice was the first Commodore-based long wheelbase car that really did look the business.
It really did stand out, didn't it?
Yeah,
when you like someone's buying a prestige model of a car, they really demand that differentiation, don't they?
Yeah, that had great presence.
Yeah,
absolutely. I bought one.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. Yeah.
What a perfect recommendation. Yeah, good stuff. Well, we hope you've enjoyed reflecting on the VR and VS Commodores. We look forward to your company next time on Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.